Everybody, welcome back to the Seven Figure Seller Summit. Today, I am super excited to have my friend Anthony Cofrancesco from PickFu with us here today. How's it going, Anthony?
Hey, how's it going, Gary? I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. Really excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So today we have a very special presentation. Anthony from PickFu is going to give us a training on how to increase your Amazon conversion rate, how to pick the right images, how to pick the right copy using split testing from PickFu. So I like to think PickFu is kind of like one of the tools of the Titans. A lot of the more experienced Amazon sellers, they're really doing a lot of testing to try to eliminate risk when it comes to product images, copy. I've used it myself. You can get a lot of insights. So I'm super excited for the topic today. So before we begin, because we are live, I just want to make sure that you guys can see and hear us. So if you can, would you mind typing your name and where you are watching from in the chat? Okay, just so that we know that you guys can see us. All right. So meanwhile, for those of you guys that don't know Anthony Cofrancesco is the Industry Liaison of PickFu. He's the previous owner of Virtuous Graphics, a marketing agency offering copywriting, graphic design, photography, and videography to Amazon sellers. And not only that, he even worked at Amazon before, earlier in his career. And Anthony is from Maryland, and he's also fond of hiking, creating amazing video footage using his drone, and also connecting with all types of people from all regions of the world. Anthony and I, we originally met a couple years ago in Hong Kong, back when we had in-person physical conferences. He's a great presenter. I'm sure it's going to be a super valuable presentation today. And then again, if you just joined us, the special training today will be how to increase your Amazon conversion rate, pick the right images and the right copy using split testing from PickFu. And meanwhile, something else is if you know of anybody that would benefit from this webinar, I think sharing is caring. Maybe if you think that someone would benefit, could you share this with them? And then this way they can join in before we get started. I think that would be even more exciting to have them on. So meanwhile, some quick shout outs. Amari, welcome. Pete Hill from Auckland, New Zealand. Great to see you. Marilyn from Gold Coast. Good day. Janie from LA. Angel from Miami. Good to see you. Travis, good to see you again from Austin. The Dog Squad Forever from David, New Jersey. Excellent. And Pete, excellent. So welcome, everybody. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn things over to you, Anthony.
All right, I'm going to jump right in. There's a lot of content to cover today. I'm going to start sharing my screen. And Gary, you can let me know if you see it, if you see the slides. I'm going to pull this up. Everything look good?
Perfect. Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, cool. All right, so everybody, thanks so much for joining today. This is best practices for conversion optimization. There is a ton of information to get through today. Gary tells me to try to keep it under about 40 minutes. So I'm going to try to do that. I might even click through some extra slides. Just a little bit about me. I'm not going to really get into it too much, but like Gary said, a little bit about myself. I'm 26 years old. I've visited 53 countries. I normally live full-time in Manila in the Philippines, but I was traveling for a conference and got stuck here in Maryland in the States. Not sure when I'll be able to get back home to my apartment and my girlfriend and all of that stuff, but we'll see. A little bit of my background is I started my career professionally working for Amazon. I worked there for about a year in fulfillment center operations. I later went on to help run and scale a creative agency. So this is where a lot of the information and ideas that I have around conversion optimization come from. I worked on that business for almost 2 years before we exited the business. And now I work as the industry liaison here at PickFu. So this talk is really going to dive into a few different things, really things like product design, packaging, infographics, and photos. I will say as well that, again, there's going to be a lot of slides here. We're just going to keep rolling through these. If you have questions, if you want to get a download of the slides, please feel free to hit me up, anthony@pickfu.com. Basically, what the format of this presentation is going to be is I'm going to start with a framework, really to try to help to explain what is conversion optimization in a whole, and then going through some strategies and concepts. These are things that you should probably think about applying into your business or think about how they apply to your product specifically. Again, I'm going to try to keep this whole thing at about 40 minutes. I scrapped some slides at the beginning. It's probably going to be a little bit too much. I'm going to keep an eye on the timer. But what I will tell you is that a week from right now, we're going to be hosting an advanced workshop. And so Gary was gracious enough to let me come back next week. That is going to be a much more in-depth version of what we talk about today. Today is really just the primer. It's to help everyone kind of wrap their mind around conversion optimization from a visual standpoint. And then if you really want to dive in, if you think, hey, this information was pretty good, it was pretty helpful, there were some good tips, just wait until next week. You'll really want to come and check that out. And we're going to get some time to dive into more of the advanced concepts as well. So things like storefront design, things like how to get the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to video, and then things like A+ content as well. So with that being said, let's jump in to what is conversion optimization. This is kind of the overall framework. And everyone probably knows this already, but success on Amazon really comes down to two factors, right? You have traffic and you have conversion. And so traffic, we're going to focus on a little bit today from the standpoint of click-through rate. And so really, what can we do to actually increase the traffic that gets to your listing, right? If you want to be a successful seller, half of the battle is getting people to actually get on your listing, right? And then the other half of the battle, which is what we're really going to focus on in this presentation today, and that is conversion, right? That's the really big thing. And this is something that a lot of sellers, especially people who are in very competitive categories, this is something that a lot of sellers struggle with. And so by conversion, what I really am talking about is the conversion rate. And that is, what can you do as a seller to increase the probability, right? Increase the probability that someone is actually going to click add to cart, right? That someone is actually going to buy the product, the end goal that we all have. And so a lot of people, a lot of sellers in specific, they have this incorrect expectation that when someone lands on their listing, that that person is a captive audience, that you have all of their attention. And the reality is actually a little bit different. When someone's shopping on Amazon, the reality of the situation is that they're usually pretty distracted. They've got the kids running around in the background, the phone's going off, the dog's barking. It's been a crazy year with COVID. And so what you really have to do as a seller, right, when someone's in that distracted environment, is you have to pull them out of that distracted environment, and you have to get them to buy the product, right? Because there's only really two options at the end of the day. The customer is either going to buy the product or they're going to bounce from your page, and that's going to hurt your conversion rate, right? And so how do we actually get them as a seller? How do you get that potential client, that potential customer to buy your product? And the key takeaway, really the crux of this presentation, is that your main goal as a seller, your number one goal as a seller, is to take that person, take that customer out of their distracted environment. And you have to convince them that your specific product, right, out of everyone else who's selling something similar, your specific product is the best option, ideally the only option. And you have to do this as quickly as possible. Again, because they're not in this carefree environment. There's a lot of things going on in their life. And so you have to pull them out of that environment. You have to say, this specific product is what you're looking for. And you have to help them arrive at that decision that they want to buy rather than bounce. That has to happen in the minimum amount of time possible. So how do we actually do this, right? 3 main steps for how we're going to pull someone out of that environment and get them to buy. Number 1 is you have to grab their attention. You're going to have to communicate whatever the key aspects of that product are. You're going to have to overcome any objections. You're going to have to do this in a very quick and a very efficient way. And then ultimately, you're going to have to convince them to buy the product. So I'm going to walk you through what is a pretty typical life cycle, a pretty typical buying process of someone who's actually purchasing a product. And let's just imagine that we're selling this product right here. I think a lot of people probably know what it is. This is a wine aerator. And so this is what I would call the awareness funnel, right? And as someone moves down this awareness funnel, they're coming closer and closer to a buying decision. And so when everyone starts off, right, they are problem aware. So they understand that they have a problem and they're looking for a way to solve that problem. So theoretically, someone might go into Google or they might go into YouTube and they might say, They don't know what a wine aerator is yet, but they're drinking wine. They enjoy drinking wine, but they want to say, how do I make wine taste better? Right? Once they're aware that, okay, I've done some searching and I realize that a wine aerator is a potential solution to the problem of wine that doesn't taste good. Now, instead of searching for make wine taste better, I'm going to go and type in something like wine aerator. Versus when someone is now not just problem aware, they know what the solution is, but now they're product aware. They already know that they're looking for a wine aerator, and now you have to convince them which specific brand of wine aerator. So now instead of typing in just wine aerator, they might type in something like Venturi V1010 aerator. Now, when most people are shopping on Amazon, they're going to already be problem aware. In fact, most people are not, and this is why anyone who's doing their own copywriting, you're probably not going to be searching for those problem aware type of queries. You're going to be looking, and most people who are searching on Amazon are already solution aware and they're already product aware. And so when someone is solution or product aware, you're really focusing on, okay, they're really searching for, does this product have the features that they need? Is this actually going to be a functional product? And then when they're product aware, they're really going to be looking for, okay, how does this specific product compete or compare to other top brands? So remember, when someone is searching for a product on Amazon, there's only two options. They're either going to buy the product or they're going to bounce. Our goal is to get them to buy. And so what this presentation is going to focus on today is all around the visual messages that we're sending to a product. So, or sending to a customer rather. So when they get to your listing, what can we do to send the most concise and the most effective visual messages so that when they're looking for the product, it's very clear that your product is not only going to be the most functional product, but the branding that surrounds it is something that's compelling and is going to convince them to buy. So when you want to do, the reason that I want to focus on visual is that you're speaking the language of your customers. And so 90% of all of the information that's transmitted through the brain is visual. In fact, the human brain is going to process an image 60,000 times faster than text. The way that our brain really works is that every minute that your eyes are open, it's basically a big graphics processor. It's interpreting light signals and it's working very, very quick to help you make decisions, right? And in the case of your customer, helping them to make the decision if they're going to buy or if they're going to bounce. So again, just to reiterate, your goal as a seller is you want to send as much information into the customer's brain as possible in the minimum amount of time possible, right? You want to pull them out of that distracted environment, give them the most relevant information that they can possibly get, and lead them to make a buying decision, right? And so what actually impacts your conversion rate at the end of the day, right? We all know things like price can impact your conversion rate, reviews can impact your conversion rate. But the reason that this presentation is going to focus on listing quality is because most of the sellers that are watching this presentation are not going to be trying to compete just on price. They're not going to be trying to compete on reviews, right? There's a lot less basis and there's a lot less substantiality to these two factors versus listing quality. This is actually a very reasonable way to build a moat around your competition. It's hard to fake. It actually indicates quality. It tells a story. And like we said earlier, it's visual. So it's going to be the fastest and most effective way to communicate with your customers. And so that's what we want to do. We want to focus on these visual messages. So a big question that I get is like, okay, well, what is a good conversion rate? What should be, how do I know if my conversion rate is actually something that I'm tracking well with, or where can it be improved? And so typically what I would say is that for a conversion rate, a base conversion rate of around 8 to 10%, a good conversion rate of 20%, and a great conversion rate of 40+%. But 2020 has been kind of a weird year. And what really has happened because of this is 2020 has really rapidly accelerated the pace of competition. And so you've seen a lot of big legacy corporations, especially in the United States, going out of business, right? Things like Pier 1, Victoria's Secret. And what that has happened is it's rapidly accelerated the pace of competition. And there might be some people out there that are saying, well, Victoria's Secret didn't go out of business. You know, they only closed a few hundred stores. And so I can tell you exactly the opposite of what's happening in the corporate offices of these legacy corporations is they're all just sitting around and saying, oh, well, we just closed a few hundred stores. We're really not super worried about our e-commerce strategy, right? That's the exact opposite of what's happening. So between legacy corporations going out of business and moving towards e-commerce, a large influx of outside capital, whether that's from private equity or just additional funding options that are available for sellers, sellers are doubling down in creating stuff that looks like things that you would see in a magazine, that you would see in national campaigns. And that's coming more and more to Amazon. So what that is already starting to do, I've seen this across our client base, and this has been a trend from the beginning of 2020, and I'm sure it will increase even more into 2021, is I think you're going to start to see conversion rates get much, much higher on the top end. If you want to hold that position on page one, you're going to need things that really do convert very well. And so it might sound crazy for some people watching, especially if you're a new seller, like how in the world could you have a conversion rate of above 65%? But thinking back to that wine aerator example, right? Someone already knows that they want to buy this product, right? All they're looking to do is to see, okay, which one of all of these wine aerators is the one that I want? And if someone lands on that listing and you do a good job of communicating quickly, here's what the problem is, here's how this product is going to solve that problem, and here's the impact that it's going to have on your life, it makes sense that if you do a good job with that and everything else on the listing looks good, that 6.5 or more out of 10 people would actually buy the product. I always say that conversion rate is the most important metric when it comes to selling on Amazon. And it's not just because of direct sales. It's not just because you're going to have lower advertising costs, but it's really coming down to ranking. And the fundamental way that the Amazon algorithm works is they want people to buy the product, right? They're always testing. They're testing on a regular basis. I saw a lot of questions in the initial questionnaire about the honeymoon period, right? The whole reason the honeymoon period exists, a period of time where Amazon will actually test new listings against the top competitors, is they want to see if a new listing comes out and it can actually convert at a higher rate than the highest competitors, then that product actually deserves a spot higher up. And so the way that you are going to build a sustainable brand is by if Amazon can repeatedly show your product to its customers, and that will actually lead to them buying the product. Rather than if they keep showing your product to a customer and they bounce, that is the absolute worst thing that Amazon, that in the eyes rather of the Amazon algorithm. So again, we're going to be focusing mainly on this today, the solution and the product aware folks, not so many problem aware people searching on Amazon. That's going to be more of a pre-Amazon. And we're going to talk about how to do that from a visual standpoint. All right, I think we're doing okay on time. I'll keep rolling through. So I'm going to go through a few things today. This is going to be product design. I'm also going to go into some images, and there's going to be a lot of slides here. So again, if you want the slides after, feel free, you can hit me up and I can send over this entire deck. So in terms of product design, I like to cover this because in some regards, and for a lot of products, the actual design of the product could be a fundamental reason why people buy it. And so product design comes down to three main factors. You've got branding, you've got packaging, and you've got the product. For branding, I'm not going to get into this too much, but I will give some best practices, and that is to keep things simple. How many people here watching this presentation have seen this logo before, right? Everyone's seen it. It's the Nike logo. Now, what a lot of people don't know about the Nike logo is that it was created for $35, and the inspiration that was given from the Nike creator, where they told the graphic designer that they wanted Nike as a Greek goddess of mythology, of speed rather, and they wanted it to indicate speed, movement, and fluid motion, right? So when you're thinking about creating your brand, don't overthink it, make it simple, keep it simple and text-based, and have it make logical sense. So the Shopify logo is simple, it's text-based, and then we've got a bag for shopping. The Viral Launch logo with increase, and then Spotify with sound. The worst thing that you can do is making your brand something that's overly complex. And so most people don't know this, but the Beats headphones from the side, it's supposed to look like someone wearing a headphone. And the NBC logo, they were the first cable network television company to have cable television in color. And so they wanted to show the world they were proud as a peacock, which is why this looks like a peacock, right? That is really risky stuff. And keep in mind, you can always change your logos and your branding later down the road. Helium 10 just did a great job with this in 2020. Why am I telling you all this? Is because what I'm going to go through in the next few slides is that the branding, the name, your tagline, your logo is the least important thing versus some of the other things we're going to talk about today. The function of your product, the creating the visual aesthetic in bigger ways than just your logo and branding. So again, just keep it simple, keep it consistent. We did a quick PickFu test with this logo. Both of these are good winners, but the reason this is a real winner is because this is a line of natural wood furniture. This icon was much clearer. The text is thinner, which is people like it as a more premium look versus this. Is this a bed? Is it a house? They weren't quite sure. So simple, straightforward, and logical. Product packaging, though, is very important. And it is one of the most important things on your product design, potentially more than the way that the product looks itself. And so when you are doing your product packaging, the best practice that I can give you is to clearly explain what the product does on the packaging. So this is a really good case study we did about this brand Angry Orange. And what you'll notice, the biggest change, aside from the bold colors on the packaging, is that front and center, you see the words odor eliminator, right? The name brand, it doesn't really matter so much about the logo. It doesn't really matter so much what the brand name is. It matters what the product does. And again, when you're trying to take someone out of that distracted environment, you want to be really quick and to the point. When you're thinking about your product packaging, and again, the reason I'm emphasizing this is because in a lot of products that people sell, the main image, everything that is going to contribute to your CTR, it could very well come down to your bottle is the only thing that you can actually show about the product. And so when you're making your product, you want to focus on every single element and make sure that it makes logical sense and make sure that every pixel is accounted for and it has form and function. So in this case here, the bottle is actually, obviously it's very beautiful. It's eye-catching, but it's clear here. Odor eliminator. This is for pets, and you can see a dog and a cat. They have their secondary tagline here. Smells like heaven, works like hell. Everything should be very clean. It should be logical, and it should be intentional. The biggest gains that you can make in terms of your product packaging, again, think about this from a click-through rate standpoint, is color. So if I was searching through page 1 of search results, and I see this color versus this color, they're the exact same design, but something that's a little bit more vibrant can do very well. This is a very good example here for this peat mud mask. Again, think about this from your main image. Think about this from a CTR perspective. This is just going to have a much higher click-through rate because it's going to catch those eyeballs. It's going to bring someone into the listing. I'm going to roll through some more examples here, but again, think about on your product packaging, very clearly explaining what the product is, what the product does. You might not be super clear about what this product is, but then if I look at the packaging, it's very clear now that it's a pet de-shedding brush, even bigger than the brand name. We have 2 versions of protein powder here, right? They're both organic protein powder, but this one is right in your face. Again, don't let the customer try to decide on what they're seeing. Tell them very clearly, and yeah, don't leave it up to them. You should very clearly explain what the product does. I'm going to roll through these last few ones, and then we'll get on to the images because I know we're already we're going pretty quick on time here. But with your packaging, think outside of the box, explore packaging alternatives. I really like pouches the best. We'll keep working here. But again, I just want to emphasize on the side of your packaging, the most important side is the front side, and I can't emphasize this enough. Try to explain exactly what the product does. If you're selling a product that is going to be an eco-friendly product and you're selling it on and you're packaging it on recycled cardboard, the colors are going to bleed through. So you really want to shoot for something that's going to be an illustration. It's a lot easier for the brain to absorb. And then if you are going to do a full color print, you can print sustainable designs. Again, you want something that's going to be eye-catching. It's going to increase your CTR. And so you can do things like printing on recycled corn, on cornstarch, and you can actually get a full colored print, although it's a bit expensive. The other thing that I want to mention about the product packaging is that keep in mind that the terms of service on Amazon don't allow for text or graphics in your main image. So a really clever way to get around that is to make the front of the product packaging to be very clear on what the product is and what it does, and it looks a little bit more like an infographic. Again, just allowing the customer to see, yes, I've found what I know that I'm looking for, and let me go and add it to my cart. Here's an example too of, again, the brand name Q2M is very small, but tire cleaner is very big. What does the product actually do? How is it going to impact the customer's life? Okay, I'm going to roll through these because I don't want to spend too much time on product packaging. I will say, though, if you can, just for a couple extra cents, I really love every year when I do go to Global Sources, they usually have a packaging expo, and you can see adding metallic accents, adding embossed accents onto product packaging really can go a long way in terms of creating a premium feel for the product. You know, an embossed sticker really can just add a couple of cents on, but it really can have a premium feel. Same thing with metallics. Product design, again, think about this just from a conversion standpoint. You might have done your product research and found that a certain product is selling very well, like this breakfast in bed tray. How do you know which color that you want to decide in, which color you want to sell on? Again, this is something that you want to try to keep in mind. Same thing with if you're adding product inclusions or selling in different quantity packs. Okay, I'm going to roll through this because I really want to, I feel like I'm already losing time. Am I doing okay, Gary? I just want to make sure you guys can still hear me. Is everything going on?
Yeah, you're doing great,
okay.
Anthony. Let's keep going.
All right, so this is going to get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. I'm going to go through some examples of photography. This is where a lot of those pre-questionnaire questions came from. And so rolling through with photography, I'm going to run through some best practices here. Number one is, if you can, upload your images into Seller Central in a file format of 3,000 by 3,000 pixels. How you can have a really good litmus test for if your images are actually high enough quality isn't by the image that Amazon displays, but actually go hover over the image and you can see if there's any visible graininess or color loss, it is not good. You want to be able to zoom in and see no loss at all. It needs to be very clear. Main images are going to be probably the area where you can make your biggest improvements on. And so first and foremost, in terms of your main image, is you want to fill up as much of the space as possible, and you want the image to be as square as possible, even if your image isn't naturally square. So think about this, right? When you're having your creative team work, you might have a product that's naturally oblong, but what you can do, so this would be like good, better, best. And if there's a frame around this, you'd see that this one is long and tall. This one is wide and a little bit taller, but this one is almost perfectly square. And so when we draw a box around it, you'll see, even though there's a lot of white space in the image, it's the minimum amount of white space based on how the product was oriented. I'm going to give a few examples of what we call decals today. This is just a really good hack that I learned recently, and that is the Amazon Terms of Service will tell you that if you have props or decals in your image, they shouldn't be gratuitous or distracting. And so I see a lot of people that are putting things like props in their main image, or they're putting in these little bonus decals, right? These are very risky in terms of TOS, but a helpful hack of if you want to create a main image that catches people's eyes, it shows what the product is or what the product does, that if the decal or if the prop is connected to the product itself, the image recognition algorithm that Amazon uses, it actually looks for the blank space. So this is really risky because it recognizes this white space and it thinks it's an external decal, versus if you connect this on, it's much less risky of having that image suppressed. So that's a helpful little hack on main images. What I like to do with these images as well for your main image is really think about how can you visualize the product in action? So these are both examples of apple cider vinegar gummies. And instead of just showing the bottle itself, showing the gummies, right? Just to give a little bit of perspective, no pun intended, but we would call this something like eye candy. And you can do this with a wide range of products. Again, it's adding a little bit of a pop of color. And as well, what I said earlier, this is a very square image for a very oblong and tall product. And again, same thing here. It adds a little bit of perspective and it makes the whole image look a little bit bigger. When I first started selling on Amazon, you could get away with an image like this. It's good, it's clean, it's symmetrical. These are reusable grocery bags. But now this is more of the standard that you have when you're selling on Amazon today. Again, when people are shopping, they might be very sure that they've typed in, they know that they're searching for reusable grocery bags. But now when I compare it to this image on the right-hand side, now I'm not only seeing that obviously these are reusable grocery bags, but now I can get a feel for what size of the products it can actually hold. I can see that there's 10 bags that are included. And even in this bag down here, I can see that it can hold something like coffee beans and they're not going to spill out. It's a very beautiful distribution of colors. So this catches your eyes. It helps you overcome some of the objections with the product if it's going to fit well in your life, and it's going to drastically increase the probability that you're going to want to add that to your cart. What I like to do with Amazon is to create two different versions of your main image. Now, the benefit of pushing the limits on what you're going to do in your main image is that it's not going to lead to your account being suspended. What's really going to happen is that the image is going to be suppressed. And so even if you are a little bit on the fence on if what you're doing, you're not 100% sure if Amazon's going to be okay with it, I would create one version that's completely safe, just your product on a white background with a little bit of a drop shadow, versus the product that's opened a little bit and it's showing what some of the ingredients inside the product are. Again, safe and risky are relative terms in this case. I wouldn't tell you to do anything that is blatantly against Amazon terms of service. The key takeaway, though, as I just stated, is a TOS violation is not going to result in a performance notification. They're just going to swap out the image, so have a backup one that's ready. Again, with your main images, the biggest thing you can encourage is to show your product in use. So again, very clear. What is this right here? Okay, this is clearly a tote for a baby bag. If you're selling a multi-pack items as well, think about arranging your products in a visually appealing way. This is a very clear example that we've used testing PickFu. You could show the 12-pack of batteries, or you could show them in this little pyramid. Look how square this image is. Even though these are tall and long, this is really filling up a lot of the white space, and it's eye-catching. If you're going to sell multi-pack items as well, again, think about showing something that's going to quickly and easily display what the quantity is. And so it might be hard to actually tell what the difference between option B and option C is here. But when you look, it's actually showing you that this actually is going to give you 25 lids as well as cups as well as stirrers, versus this, you don't see the lids. This is only showing one pack. And so again, think about what's going on in your customer's brain. And even if you are the seller and you're really looking at this on a subconscious level, there's something that, for me, it took me a while to figure out what the difference between these two images were. But when you read the feedback on a subconscious level, your brain is processing this even if you don't really realize that you're doing so. Wearable products almost always, this is just a general best practice, wearable products almost always should be shown with a person. Again, you're allowed to do this according to Amazon terms of service as long as it's not gratuitous or distracting. And so what's this product? I don't know. Okay, it's very clear it's a sports bra. It's very clear it's a wrist brace. It's very clear it's an elbow brace. And this was just a quick PickFu poll to run and see which image was preferred. It's not very surprising that option B is the winner. If you have a product that has inclusions, right? Again, with your main image, you want it to be simple. You want it to be something that your brain can easily digest and see exactly what they're getting. So this is kind of a strange little funnel of vortex that's showing that this vacuum has suction versus this, right? There's no extraneous information. You're giving the brain exactly what it needs to make a buying decision. Okay, I'm getting the car vacuum. It's got a hose. It's got this attachment. It's got a little carrying case. This is why these images are going to win. They're going to convert better, and they're going to get a higher CTR, right? Just a clear demonstration as well of just haphazardly throwing, being very intentional. Every pixel matters, and being very intentional with how the product inclusions are organized, and then also different areas of the product are featured. So on the back here, you can see this LED indicator is showing that, hey, you can actually increase the resistance of the product. Anything that is a baby related product, especially for safety reasons, even if, again, someone has typed in gate for baby in your image, especially your main image, this is one of the areas where Amazon generally allows a wide breadth is in the baby category, is they want it to be very clear when someone's searching and when someone's shopping that this product is specifically made for use with a baby, and it's specifically safe for babies. So that is a pretty good recommendation. And then, yeah, use props to clarify any ambiguous products. So this would be a really hard product to kind of wrap your mind around what this product does. But if you see it here with the props of the cereal and the milk, okay, this bowl is clearly designed to separate your cereal from your milk. And so it's going to keep your cereal from getting soggy. I think I just moved these around a little bit, but quantity decals. If you're going to, when I first started selling on Amazon, you saw these things everywhere. There's a reason Amazon started to crack down on these, because they don't provide any value. It's very clear that this is a 2-pack. And so just stay away from anything that's really clickbaity. Again, what I will say is that the reason that you will see these, if you're wondering, why does my competitor get away? Why are their images not getting suppressed? The reason why is because these are connected to the product, right? And so these are not part of the product packaging, but the algorithm, these aren't real people that are going through all of these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of product listings saying this one stays, this one goes. They're first flagged by a computer program. And so if your badges are connected physically, I mean, in a digital way, if they're connected to the product, it's going to be much less risky for you. That being said, though, Amazon, their number one priority as a company is they want to be the most customer-centric company. They want the buying experience to be good for the shopper. And so it seems like for certain areas where they are a little bit more lenient is on multi-pack items, but in excess of 4 items. So you don't really need this decal. This is kind of clickbaity. It's not, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 items versus if these were all the same price, it would be, no one's going to go from page 1 and count, 12 items versus 10 items. And that's why I think they allow for those categories. It's the same thing too with if you're selling multiple color variations, that it's going to be a better buying experience for the customer if they can see all of the potential variations from page 1. You're most likely not going to be able to put in your title for this full face snorkel mask, blue, red, light blue, pink, etc. So if you can just see it here very quickly, again, that customer is able to make a good buying decision from that first page of search results. Okay. One quick note that I do want to make as well is in regards to 3D renders. And so basically what I'll tell you, this is a Rolex and this is a 3D render. It looks really clean. It looks really good. We did a big survey of 200 customers using PickFu, and we asked them what they thought about 3D renders. This is a question that we get a lot, especially for main images. And generally what people will say about 3D renders is that they really don't like 3D renders for images because they're worried about if it's real, they're not sure if they trust the product. They're not sure about the overall quality. But everyone seems to dislike 3D renders in theory because when we actually showed them real 3D renders, they couldn't tell the difference. And so the key takeaway is, like, for certain products, if you can tell a difference, so can your customers. But if you can't tell a difference, then your customers can't tell a difference either. So believe it or not, both of these are 3D renders and they look really clean and they look really good. So with that being said, there are some products that are almost always going to look better as 3D renders. Again, think about this from what we were talking about earlier, the brain being a big graphics processor. Your brain isn't going to process the imperfections in things that are going to look better at 3D renders. So I'll give you a couple examples, right? If you're selling anything that comes in a box or a plastic container, it's almost always going to look better as a 3D render because it looks better than real life. It's so perfect. Same thing too, like if you are doing large injection mold products like phone cases, if you're selling high quantity variations, like a lot of the products are exactly the same things. You can save yourself a lot of money by using 3D renders. Anything that's overly metallic, it's just going to be better than life, better lighting than you'll almost be able to get in any studio environment. As well, too, if you're selling technical products, 3D renders are very easy to show exploded product views. Okay, we're rolling here. I think I'll go for another about 10 minutes, and then I'll be done, Gary. So lifestyle images. Basically, what I just want to give a few quick tips here is, number one, only use Photoshop if it's going to actually look realistic. Lifestyle images can be incredibly expensive. They can look really good, but they can also be very, very expensive. And so if you're going to Photoshop something, there's things that look good with Photoshop and there's things that look bad with Photoshop. Both of these are good examples of Photoshop. The general dichotomy is that Photoshop is going to work well on a static product. A static product is something that no one's going to touch, no one's going to interact with. It's just going to sit there. So these baby blocks are a good example of a static product. You can just drop it into a stock photo. No one's touching it. It's going to look very good as a Photoshopped image. So you can create very convincing photo manipulated lifestyle images for static products. For a dynamic product, something that someone is wearing, someone is touching, that's going to be really difficult to Photoshop in a convincing way. If you're saying, okay, well, I want to do lifestyle images, but I want to save myself some money, and you want to create stuff that looks really good, this is something to write down. This is something to share with your creative team. And that is the whole idea of using monochromatic color schemes. So monochromatic just means one, these are very stylistic, and these are probably the cheapest and probably the best looking lifestyle images you can create, because all you have to do is get a really basic backdrop, right? You drop the product in, and then you put in a couple contextually relevant props. In terms of, this is just an overall good practice for infographics, is really to overcome objections with a verse graphic. Again, think about someone going through that awareness funnel, and you really want to show, okay, what's your life going to be like before or after ours versus the competition, right? These are very clean. They're very easy to understand. For this, it's a phone holder, and it's showing you that, hey, this isn't going to block your view versus a competitor's is going to block your view. I guess I got into this section a little bit quick, but increase your, so basically this is a really good infographic. If you have a giftable item, specifically things that are for parents, specifically things that are for spouses, these tend to be a lot of home products, things that are cleaning products, automotive products. Think about recreating different graphics for specific holidays, and you can actually put these in your listing around the holidays. So this is an example of a Christmas graphic, but it would be just as easy to create using a stock image, the picture of your product, and then it could be for Mother's Day or Father's Day, any holiday where you're getting a gift for someone else. Yeah, I guess I got into the infographics section a little bit earlier when I deleted the slides, but we're doing okay. Another really good format and a template for an infographic is to help the customer visualize the different scenarios, right? So if we have this shoulder brace, it can very clearly say, hey, I'm planning on buying this in the office, right? That's the problem that the customer has laid out in their mind. They're going to be able to quickly see that, and they're going to say, okay, I'm going to use it for the office. Let me go and add it to the cart. And so again, this is very easy to do with stock images. All you need is a picture of your product on a white background, and then you can drop stock photos of these different scenarios, right? Just following a very simple template, right? To create very convincing lifestyle infographics. Make sure that, this is probably the biggest tip for photography, is make sure that you're intentional with your props, right? Why is this ring sitting on a leaf? And this is probably one of the best examples I've seen all year, right? This is a really clean, it's a really good image, right? But why are there orange slices? Why are there bread here, right? So this is a little bit of a grainy image, but the props are clean, right? They make a lot of sense. And so if you're going to do lifestyle, make sure you're very intentional with your props. I'm going to just roll through these last examples so I can wrap up here, Gary. But this is an example of the monochromatic backgrounds. Again, this is probably one of the cheapest and most effective lifestyles that you can get. You can even do things where you match the product color to the product itself. If you have a lot of different color variations, don't leave it just into your, the customer to select through the different types of color variations that you have. Try to have at least one image where you show, whether it's in your A+ content or in your image gallery, show all of the product color variations as once, just so people can very clearly see, oh my goodness, I didn't even see it was shown in a teal color. This can have a pretty good impact on your conversion rate. And again, I think the things just got a little bit out of order, but monochromatic or textured flat lays, this is monochromatic, right? This is a textured flat lay. So you can just even get faux textures, and you just drop the product, a couple of succulents, and this is the cheapest, most cost-effective way to get really good looking lifestyle. It's just a shot down from a top down, and you can actually do that very easily. Again, if you are doing lifestyle shoots, you really want to focus on every single detail in the shot. So here you'll notice that the headphones are matched to the water bottle. The outfit is perfect. Same thing with this Yeti cooler. You've got the cowboy, he's wearing the outfit. It's even got the appropriate vegetation in the background. If you're doing lifestyle images, they really should be beautiful, logical, and they should be very easy to visualize. So again, it's not just enough to have this look beautiful. It needs to make sense. So here you're making lunch. This is something that you would add on when you're making lunch. And yeah, leverage text to show the full story. So this is just, I just wanted to share this example of an infographic, is that, you know, this is for potato chips and it's showing, hey, fried potato chips versus the pop chips. But like, what's this trying to tell me? You know, use text to really take it to the next level. And so it's saying, hey, you're getting the same amount of sugar, but you're getting way more gummies here. Okay, I'm just gonna roll through here. For white background images, just a general tip is that I don't recommend using white background images unless you're selling a fashion product, and the reason why, fashion products, you can do a 360 showing different angles of the product. And it's good for that regard, but for a product where you're actually trying to sell based on the functionality of the product, you really want to use your infographics, right? It's going to do a much better job of explaining why you need to buy the product and the features and the benefits. Oh my goodness, I had so much more here. Gary, do I have enough time to go? I think I've already gone so long. Should I?
You have another, let's say, 4 or 5 minutes if you want to cover a little bit more. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is the last part, is just here on infographics. Okay, yeah. So
let's keep going.
Okay, cool. So basically here, 3 basic strategies for infographics is follow your bullet points, stick to one concept, and then use the 5-second rule. So think about your bullet points, think about your infographics the way that you would think about your bullet points. Basically, you want to have the feature and the why it matters. So here we've got this car cleaner. The flathead knows, why do you care? It's for hard to reach areas. What I recommend is staying away from something like this, where it's like multiple points per infographic, and you really want something that's one singular point per graphic. These type of ear pads are going to be super soft and very comfortable. Again, you want it something that's very easy to digest by the brain. These kind of infographics used to be really common, right? Product comparison versus the competitors, right? People are so used to seeing this. This is why those earlier photos I showed of the verse, this is what our competitor looks like. It's going to block your view. Ours is not going to block your view, right? So showing these charts with like a bunch of checks and then your competitors of X's are not very effective anymore. If you're ever doing a sizing infographic, I would highly encourage you to not just show the sizing, but show a point of reference. So how big is 2/5 of an inch? Right? It's not as clear versus now I can see, I get an idea for how thick the hands are and how tall this mat is going to be. Same thing with this, 0.14 inches. How big is that? I'm not sure. Okay, now I can see that for this phone case, it's just a little bit thicker than the actual phone itself, right? Allow people to visualize what's going on. Anytime you're trying to show a functionality of a product, it should really indicate how easy the product is going to be to use. And so basically here for this thermometer, it's showing you like, what are the biggest possible objections people are having with this product, right? They want to be able to read in Celsius and Fahrenheit. They want to be able to switch. They want it to show that, hey, I can really clearly see the color temperature change, you know, green, normal versus red for a fever. And then like, what are the things that I can actually scan with this thermometer, right? So again, think about what your biggest objections are of the product and visualize them into one singular infographic, right? And then imagine as people are going to click through your image gallery, each image should focus on a specific either feature or overcome an objection so that you're going to increase the probability that they're going to buy the product. If you can with your graphics as well, apply branding, right? This is all part of the same image set, but you'll notice here that for these diapers, they're applying consistent branding. It looks like these all flow together, right? Think about if you're having 7, if you're having 9 images in your gallery, you want to click through and it should look like a little slideshow that all flows together with one singular point per graphic. Make sure, I really shoot for making sure that the images are not just mobile friendly, but they're ultra mobile friendly. And so that even if I'm just going to glance at it for a second, if I'm sliding through, it's like, it's very, very clear exactly what the product is and exactly what the messaging is supposed to tell me. I think this is the last tip I'll give here, is that overcome objections with realistic testimonials. And so it's against Amazon TOS to put a customer testimonial into your image gallery, right? But what you can do is you could put a picture of your product, and then you could put in quotes something that someone theoretically said that was overcoming an objection. So something like, they have this bike rack, and then you would create, maybe you'd have a little 5 stars above it, and then you'd say, super easy to install, straightforward instructions, helpful video guide. And so you're not doing this, which would be against TOS, but you're putting things that people have potentially said about your product without saying it's directly a testimonial. Yeah, I'll skip that one. And yeah, this is a really good example of like, this is for a hot and cold beverage, right? And so what you really want to think about, again, is like the customer is distracted, right? You want to get in and you want to get out with your messaging. And so think about a 5-second test. Like if someone only looks at the image for 5 seconds and you take away the graphic, will they actually retain what was going on, what they were supposed to remember about that graphic? And so you want to convey messages that are very, very clear. All 3 of these graphics are trying to do the exact same thing. And so we'll use PickFu for this regularly, is to go and see what are all the top competitors doing, and then to learn what can we see are the benefits, the strongest points of like option A and option C, and how can we combine that to make an even more effective graphic. So I know that was just a tremendous amount. Sorry for that going a little bit long, guys. Again, if you want to download the slides, if you have questions, if you want to get some input on your own creative assets, feel free to hit me up, anthony@pickfu.com. I'm going to explain really quick what is PickFu, and then I'm going to talk about what the advanced mastermind is going to be, or the advanced workshop is going to be next week. Basically, PickFu is a really valuable tool that you can use to get creative insights on your different products and your creative assets. And so basically, like, how could you go from product packaging like this to this, going through a bunch of iterations? Like, how would you decide between any of these iterations to end up at something like this? Well, you use PickFu. And so PickFu is instant access to customer feedback. So basically, you can upload a creative asset into PickFu, and we have a panel of more than 10,000 people that'll all give feedback. The cool thing is you can narrow down to a targeted audience, right? You can pick by gender, age range, hobby types, a whole bunch of different characteristics. It's super fast, so you don't need an audience, right? And unlike a normal A/B split test, which might take 2 weeks, a PickFu test is usually going to be done in about 30 minutes to an hour. And then what I like the most is that everyone's required to give you detailed responses. So you're not just seeing, hey, this got 56% of the votes. Every person that answers is required to give you detailed feedback as to why. And so a lot of the basis for this presentation and a lot of the basis for what our clients use PickFu for is really diving into the results and looking to see what innovative and out-of-the-box ideas can I get on on my creative assets, and how can I actually make them better. So what I would say is, like, don't take my word for it. If you've never used PickFu, there's this company you might have heard of called Thrasio. They're the fastest profitable company to reach unicorn status, $1 billion in valuation. And again, we did a really in-depth case study with them all about how when they acquired this brand Angry Orange, they bought it for $2 million. They changed the product packaging and were able to grow the brand to more than $20 million. And so we have a good testimonial you can check out on our YouTube channel. And you'll see the VP of Creative and Brand Strategy, John Hefter, talk about how they use PickFu for every major creative decision. So if you haven't used it, you can use the code 7-Figure Seller Summit, abbreviated 2020, and you'll get 50% off. And then I do want to let you guys know, I know that was just a ton. And again, sorry for really breezing through that. But register. If you thought, hey, there was some helpful information in there, this was about 40 minutes, or I tried to keep it to about 40 minutes. The advanced workshop, which is next week on Thursday, that's going to be a much slower pace. That's going to be at a much more relaxed pace. That's going to be 2 hours long. And what we've decided to do, Gary was really gracious for letting us come on. And basically, the format of that is it's $50 USD to go to that advanced workshop. But the cool thing is, it's the $50 that goes to Gary. That's really to support 7-Figure Seller Summit. But we're also throwing in a $50 PickFu credit. So it's essentially like netting out. It's kind of a no-brainer. And where we're really going to be able to dive in is we're going to really dive into a lot of the things around image optimization. Like, how do you actually end up at those better images? Like, what are the strategies that you can use? It's going to be a bit more interactive. We're also going to be able to have a little bit more time to dive into the thing like A+ content, right? How to set up your storefront design. Video is a really big thing for 2020 and 2021, right? What's the format of the videos that you should be placing in your display ads? What are the format of the videos that you should be putting on your listing? So again, we're going to have a lot more time. I know there was a ton of information there for only $50. And again, you get a $50 PickFu credit. So it's kind of a no-brainer. It should be really good. And that's the email address. And we can do some Q&A. Sorry about that, Gary.
Awesome. Thank you for the awesome action-packed presentation. I highly recommend that you guys check out the advanced training next week. I dropped the link in the chat for you guys that can see it. And I'm working from home, so my son is here. He's 2 years old, so if you hear some baby noise in the background, I do apologize. But this has been awesome. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat. We had some great feedback, super informative. Anthony, make a turnkey process for consumers to make an easy buying decision. Love it. And Easy says, I get so much out of these presentations. And I screenshot like crazy so I can refer to the information later. I think today was just the tip of the iceberg. I loved what you talked about in terms of like the images, the optimizations. So I think if this is interesting to you guys, if you want to learn more, definitely check out the mastermind we have next week. It will be a 2-hour mastermind advanced conversion optimization workshop. So basically it costs $50. You'll get $50 in PickFu credits. That's a no-brainer. And PickFu has been gracious enough to work with us. So it will help support us as well with the summit. And we will have a replay available. Check out your email for that. And if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to type in the chat. I had a question for you, Anthony.
Yep.
Sorry for the background noise.
All good.
Talking about the comparison chart, because I use this personally, with your product versus competitors, the checks versus X's, this has been going on for some time now. So if I understand correctly, you actually don't recommend this. Is that true?
I would say that in some regards, if you can think about what's on that comparison chart. And so if I go back to the example where it has the comparison chart, what I see here is it's saying okay, this is green, this is kid friendly, it's easy to carry, it's easy to use. Are the competitor products really not easy to use? Are they really not kid friendly? Are they really not green, right? We're all selling an eco-friendly, sustainable straw. So is it really reasonable to say that the other product is not green? And so what my suggestion would be is when people are going to be able to see through that a little bit easier than the checks and the X's. So what was a little bit more effective version of the same kind of concept for a graphic was showing one specific feature of the product, one thing that could be a real objection. So with that car mount holder, and you're saying, hey, the reason that you want to buy our product specifically over every other car mount holder is because the other ones are going to hold it up in your display, in your view, and ours is going to keep it down below. And you're trying to differentiate on a specific point. And so if you're thinking about overcoming a specific objection, right, I would try to keep it specific rather than trying to overload them with information and trying to kind of trick them with, hey, ours has a line of checks. Because you're a little bit biased, right? You're on your own page. And then I think it used to work a little bit more effectively in the past. I think there's more effective things to do now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we have a question from Li Hyang Chim. Does Amazon have any exceptions that you can upload images of our products with black or any background with white products? I guess what he's saying is white on white, that's kind of hard to see. What are your thoughts about that? Yeah,
so when I worked at Amazon, the thing that they'll say every day and they're drilling into your brain is they want to be the most customer-centric company in the world. And so when they put out their terms of service, the terms of service are really there to protect the customer and to make the buying process as good as possible for the customer. And so there's definitely some examples of areas where actually a white background wouldn't make sense, right? I've seen this with glow-in-the-dark products, right? And you actually want to show, or products that work specifically at night, you want to actually show it on a black background. The reason that they want everything on a white background is for consistency, so that it looks clean, so that people aren't putting a lime green background just to try to catch people's eyes. And so I guess to answer the question would be, if you have a product that would actually help the customer to make a better buying decision, would help them to understand what they're buying from that first page of search results, then there's probably a little bit more flexibility in regards to the color of the background. But if you're trying to do it just to try to game the system and try to like have something that's going to intentionally, just try to, grab eyeballs without adding much value, then Amazon's probably going to suppress that image.
Excellent. Thanks for that question. And thanks for that answer. Janie says, great suggestions. And Andrew Simmons, thanks, Anthony. Just a rerun of your 7-figure seller summit offer. No, actually, what this is, today's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm inviting Anthony back next week at the same time for a special 2-hour mastermind. So this will be a smaller group. It'll be over a Zoom call where you guys can have, deep dive with Anthony. We're going to dive deeper into the more advanced optimization strategies. We didn't even talk about copywriting. We didn't talk about A+ content just because of the limit of the time today. But if you want to make an investment, it's $50. And then this way you'll get not only, $50 in PickFu credit, you'll also get the 2-hour live training with Anthony. So if you're not sure about how to use PickFu, if you're not sure about maybe your images or your packaging or anything else, he can really take any uncertainty or doubt out of that. So that's the difference of the offer. So sorry I wasn't more clear, but I hope that makes sense. And you can get that. You can grab that at 7fss.thrivecart.com/PickFu. Sorry for the verbose URL, but I think it'll be useful if you're considering PickFu, because it's kind of a no-brainer. It's $50, you get $50 of credit, and you get a 2-hour live mastermind with Anthony and myself and other people that want to do this. And I think, we can dive in deeper. We can even do a live teardown. Maybe if you ran a poll, this week, join, and then next week, you can show it to Anthony and get his expert opinion about that. I've used PickFu before with my own Amazon products. It's really interesting because I compared my product images against my competitors, and I got some cool insights. So it's really, it's quick. It's like 30 minutes. You can get like 30 replies for like $50 if my memory serves me correct. But does that sound right to you, Anthony? Anything else I missed about the mastermind workshop next week?
Yeah, the big thing is that, when I originally talked to Gary about this, it's like, this is a topic that, as you can see today, it's tough to put all of this into something that's a short format. And so this is, I think PPC gets a lot of talk, different parts of people's Amazon strategies gets a lot of attention. And I think this visual side of conversion optimization, like what's the process for actually having really good creative, and how should you rationalize it, and what are strategies that you can share with your creative team? Like what's a good way to break that down? And so Gary was gracious enough to let us come back on and do a longer form presentation and a longer form webinar on it.
Awesome. Yeah, great. That's a great question. And Andrew, yes. And for clarification, Anthony also mentioned a straight up PickFu offer for 7-figure seller summit members. Yes, we do have that as well. That's the same offer that you saw before. Okay, that's correct. Okay, great. And Patty says, clearly you have a great deal of wisdom and experience. Thanks for sharing. Great. Thank you, Patty. So if no other questions, Anthony, if we were to apply the 80-20 principle, what would be your number one recommendation today for people that want to increase their Amazon conversion rate? Besides signing up for PickFu, what would be your number one tip today?
I think probably focus on sending real clear visual messages, right? Just whatever you do, just really be a stickler for every single pixel that you have on the screen, whether it's in an image, whether it's on your packaging. Make sure everything is there intentionally and nothing's just thrown in there without much reason. The same way that when you're designing a product, right, you're very meticulous about every single centimeter of that product to make sure it makes sense and then make sure it actually adds value to the product, makes it work better for the customer. Think about the same thing with your images and really rip it apart down to its most basic components and think about, okay, does this actually help to convert a customer? Does this help to explain what this product is and how it's going to make their life better? Perfect.
That's an awesome final words of wisdom. So Much appreciated, Anthony. It's been great having you on, and I will see you next week. And for those of you guys that want to learn more, definitely check out the offer, 7fss.thrivecard.com/PickFu. And thank you everybody for watching. And I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I think there was a gold mine of nuggets that Anthony dropped on us today. It was fast, so that's why I suggest if you want to dive deeper next week, you'll get even more out of it. All right. So so it's great to see everybody. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you at the next session. Bye, everyone.
See you later.